Hello, my name is Benjamin Hart. I'm an American attorney and the Managing Director of Integrity Legal here in Bangkok, Thailand. As the title of this video suggests, we're discussing the Phuket Sandbox. And I've had a lot of correspondence from folks on this wanting to know how this is working, sort of the practical implications of the Phuket Sandbox, what it's like down there. And a major question that I've had come up is, what happens if somebody, myself or somebody else that's on my flight, tests positive for COVID going into the Phuket Sandbox? Well, the following article from the Bangkok Post may shed some light on this. Article is titled, TAT Backs Phuket Quarantine, Possibility of Isolation Part of the Rules. Quoting directly, a total of 13 tourists who just arrived in Phuket, and this is from July 10, 2021. Quoting again, a total of 13 tourists who just arrived in Phuket asked to return home after boarding the same inbound flight with a traveler who tested positive for COVID-19. The Tourism Authority of Thailand, TAT, is telling travelers to acknowledge the risk of quarantine measures upon arrival in accordance with provincial rules. Quote, all of them agreed to return home as the Provincial Health Authority allowed them to depart since last night. We're considering rewarding them with special privileges if they plan to revisit Thailand in the future, said Yutasak Supasorn, governor of TAT. Quoting further, the Phuket Sandbox scheme confirmed the first COVID-19 case from an inoculated tourist arriving on July 6th. The patient was sent to the hospital for treatment, while 13 passengers on the same flight from Dubai were identified as a high-risk group and transferred to an alternative local quarantine facility. For those who are unaware, that's basically alternative state quarantine outside of Bangkok, that ASLQ as opposed to ASQ. Quoting further, Mr. Yutasak said travelers in the sandbox scheme already acknowledged the possibility of a 14-day quarantine if they are determined to be a high-risk group, according to the Certificate of Entry application process. So, yeah, those that even go into the Phuket Sandbox, if some issue arises with respect to the possibility of testing positive for COVID-19, there is the possibility of quarantine nonetheless, notwithstanding the fact one has gone into the Phuket Sandbox. The other interesting point of fact I thought was worth noting within this, in quoting this or when looking at this situation, analyzing it, everybody presumptively coming in has been vaccinated. So because that's one of the criteria associated with being able to even use the Phuket Sandbox. So I don't exactly know the underlying facts here, what the situation is, but it is rather interesting that somebody tested positive and then presumptively other vaccinated travelers then were subjected to the 14-day quarantine or allowed to turn around and leave, as was the case here. So it may be possible that if someone, tests positive on your plane or you test positive immediately, you may be able to leave. Another question becomes what happens, during the point you're staying in Phuket for the 14 days. If you test positive during that time, what happens? I've yet to see exactly what the protocols would be. Presumptively, that person might then be put in quarantine from 14 days as of that date. So they're put in ASLQ, Alternative State Local Quarantine, akin to ASQ, where you're actually in a hotel room for 14 days, as opposed to the SHA Plus protocol, which is in Phuket, where you basically stay in one of these hotels, but you're kind of allowed to roam around the island. Again, I don't know what the exact answer to that is. I think presuming one would be quarantined is probably a safe bet. Would they allow that person to leave if they've been on the island a while? I don't know. But we will certainly keep people updated on this channel as the situation progresses.